Gundawindi, mate. This
Yeah.
morning, I went on a cotton farm tour. A
How was
cotton
that?
farm tour. I'm like, hey, there, cotton bin environments. But yeah, so it was good, mate. We went out onto a working farm and saw the different stages of the cotton and the way that they water it all and where the water comes from, how it works, basically all of that, and watched a video on some things.
Hey everyone, Josh here, and welcome back to Constructing Out the Podcast. And in today's episode, Kenny and I have a chat on the difference between Colorbond roofers and Colorbond cladders after a few things that have happened this week. We also go through how cladding isn't the same system as roofing, how you can't install them the same way, and that Colorbond factory cladding can't be treated the same way as you treat residential. Did you know that we also have the full first season up now on Spotify? If you can jump over there and give us a follow both there and here on YouTube, it really helps us in getting the podcast out there. And if you have any questions, please chuck them down in the comments below. So with all that out of the way, let's crack on with the episode.
Sat in an old machine, old picker.
Yeah,
That was good. Then we had morning tea, and then went to the place Gundawindi Cotton, where they've got it's a clothing company that started from the farmers here in Gundawindi that make the cotton. So that was my morning.
Very nice.
And I'm here because of the Hell of the West triathlon. So I'm
good old Bundy ginger beer goes down a treat.
It does, since it's 34 degrees out here.
Yeah, is it supposed to be hot over the weekend for your triathlon? Or what? Yeah, so good. Have fun with that.
Yeah, it'll be great. It will be great.
Cool. So we're gonna kick it off with today's episode, and today we're going to be talking about how cladders are not roofers and roofers are not cladders.
Well, there's some challenges there, isn't there? Because they're the same trade essentially as licensed by the licensed governing boards, QBCC, for example, because we're in Queensland. They're the same. Apparently, roofers do metal cladding. And when we talk about cladding, we're talking about metal cladding. We're not talking about timber, fibre, cement, etc.
We'll get the specificity out of the way and say that's particularly what we're talking about.
Well, and if we want to get really down to it, what we're talking about is Colorbond cladding. So when using the roofing materials on walls. Yeah. So
yeah, we thought about. I went out to a job the other day. The person's called up us and they've gotten rid of their builder because the quality of finish they've just had enough.
Yeah.
The whole thing's supposed to be trim deck wall cladding, and it's just not finished in a well manner, and hasn't been done to code either. So that's also some fun as well.
You shared those photos with me. They've this is one where the QBCC got involved and gave a scope to where the what needed to be replaced. But when you got out there, what you saw, that was we can't replace it for that. There's a lot more involved that needs to be done before we can actually get involved with it. So you recommended to get a roof an inspector.
If the walls are not meeting BAL 19 as they're supposed to, then there's a good chance that the roof is not either. But it's like 4 weeks lead time for them to get someone out to do it, and they just don't have that time between the lead time and their presentation of what their case is to the QBCC for their date or whatever. So they don't have the time.
So it sounds like a sticky situation that they've gotten themselves in. Now that we're talking about that, let's go back to the fact that when you went out to see this client, and tell us how their journey with what they wanted to how it ended up where we are now.
After talking to the actual client, she actually stated that she originally wanted us to perform the cladding.
MyCladders.
But looked up us online and thought, hey, those guys will be the ones to go with. And when she approached the builder about that, the builder's gone, no, don't worry, I've got it all sorted. And he also, when she asked if she could know who the company was that was doing it, he wouldn't give it to her. And it wasn't until she up on site one day to have a look at how it was going on, she actually saw said roofer on site and it had sign marked cars.
Right. So in other words, going to the topic of this whole podcast. Now, this is one that we're got to tread carefully on, I guess, because we want to take it from a positive light rather than a negative light. The issue is that cladding is being pushed by Colorbond and by architects and by the industry, and people like it, right? It's people see really nice high-end finishes on, and they want to have something slightly different. They love the design of the Colorbond finish. And the problem is that roofers are pressured by builders to take it on. And they don't have the experience.
Yeah, they don't have the expertise to really have a go. And the times they have had a go, they're probably not allowed enough, and probably it's eaten into their quote a lot. And they've realized that, we can't do this as long term. Because a lot of the time, I think
the finish is the other thing. Yeah. If the finish hasn't been desired by the client because the said contractor did the work and didn't finish it to the outcome that the owner of the client was wanting, then, well, it goes into the too hard basket for the roofing company.
Yeah, that's it. And so guys, from our experience, we've seen a lot of guys just want to kind of get in and get the job done so they can move on to the next job. When it comes to wall cladding, there's a lot more thought that gets involved. So all of those sort of things that you can kind of get away with on the roof, like not so neat cuts and all that sort of stuff, you can't get away with that once it's on a wall where everyone is going to be right up against it.
Yeah, well, you can walk right up to it and see it with as close as your eyes can focus, right?
Pretty much.
And look, to reiterate your point there, sorry, I'll jump in. To reiterate your point, you said roofers, and you can't hold this against roofers because it is why they got into the industry. Roofers they enjoy working outside on the roofs. They lay the roof sheets. The process of following a system from the start to finish it's quite an enjoyable thing. And then when they get thrown into doing wall cladding, they do it and go, I don't want that. I don't want that. No, you're offered more money to do it. And they're like, no, the enjoyment factor of it and to how much money they can make doing normal roofing. Majority of them, and majority of roofing contractors will go, I'm in this to make money. I'm going to go where I can make the most money. And generally speaking, you're not going to be putting, and that's on how many square meters, how many linear meters can I put down in a day? And that's where that comes from. When you go to cladding, it's really hard to do that and do it with really the finish that needs to happen with it as well.
Yeah. So that, it becomes a very, like with the example of this job that I went out to, they've gone and done with wall cladding, the sucking has to be against the frame. They've installed.
What happened?
They installed the battens onto the wall and then laid the sarking over the battens like they would anti-con on a roof.
Right. So I don't know if that's code or not, but I've never done that before. That sounds wrong.
No. Yeah, you would think that from the perspective of if this was going to be timber cladding, you would have to install the sarking against the wall. So however the sarking has to be for timber has to be the same for the metal cladding, because that also goes into how how the sarking affects around the windows as well.
100%, because that's why the sarking works around the windows. You have the windows wrap over to the sides and sarking goes up underneath that. And quite often you use tape, and you've got to tape that in to ensure that water gets down all the way to the bottom. And then you put, so the only place where I know in the past we've done that, and I know we're digressing off into another thing here, is if we've got a toe mold which sits on the bottom batten, we'll pull the sarking out and run it over the top of the batten, over the top of that batten, over the top of that toe mold, and that toe mold will press up hard against the frame underneath, or to the slab underneath it, or close that juncture up.
Yeah, well, the toe flashing is it's the same as an apron when you've got a wall junction with a wall and a roof. You've got to have the sarking come down over the top of the apron. So the same principle applies to the toe flashing. The water needs to be forced out, and that's what the flashing's for.
So in this situation, you've got a reputable company who's done the roofing, but a reputable roofing company that's done the project. The builder has not been someone that's had very good experience from what you've seen and what I've seen in the photos. The builder hasn't had very good experience. And so the setup wasn't there, and the builder wasn't able to be confident to the roofer, this is what needs to be done, this is how it needs to be set up, and ask the questions, how are you going to do that? And when the roofers come back and told them this is how we're going to do that, there hasn't been any alarm bells go like, hang on, this is wrong. And so because of all of that, it's gotten now to the point where the owners wanting to take the builder to QCAT for damages and for expenses. The builders wanting to sue the owner for their lockup payment. And they've gotten themselves into the point where they've got us to come and give them a quote. And it's just a big mess rather than how it could have operated, how it could have run.
Yeah, well, from what the clients told me, the builder's approach to how the windows were going to be finished was, if the roofer doesn't do them the way that they need to be done, I'll get them to come back and do it again. Instead of nutting it out and doing it prior to everything happening. Mm-hmm. But from what it looks like on site is that the windows haven't been installed either, have been installed incorrectly, doors have been installed incorrectly, like things just haven't gone well all around. And that then expands the amount of problems that are now arisen on site. And instead of picture framing windows and stuff, they've basically done a standard toe mold that you would do at the bottom. You put that over the window, and then done standard sort of aprons off of the window, kind of treating it like. And it doesn't flow. It doesn't look nice. It doesn't work. And a lot of the joins, like as much as they've done all the joins on the roof, they've done them to code 40 mil spacings on all of their rivets. They haven't done any of that on the walls.
And the other thing is, like when the toe molds, etc., at the bottom, where they have changed directions, they haven't done that smoothly. They've just sort of stopped and just thrown a corner down over the top. Now that just brings it down to I had a rep the other day give me an analogy.
Yeah.
The difference between a tiler and a bathroom tiler. So not saying that either the bathroom tilers don't do normal tiles and normal tilers don't do bathroom tiles, but the difference in how they operate. So a floor tiler just sets out, they string their line and they work from that and they go side to side. And I'm not going to pretend I know exactly how they do every little part, but the difference is they can do that and they can get away with certain things. They just make sure they start at a certain point. With a bathroom, you're generally going to have feature tiles. You're going to have intricate parts where the tile comes up and they're going to cut it. They're going to splice it over the top of a bath. They're going to do all these things with hobs and all these. So they have to put a lot of thought into the finish of it before they even start.
So the funny part about that is the lady whose house I went to, her dad was there as well. And funnily enough, he was a tiler.
Yeah.
And I used technology with him and he understood exactly what he's like. 100%. That makes complete sense.
Yeah. So this leads us to the topic now that we're talking about, which is roofers aren't cladders, cladders aren't roofers. So where I say that is that us as a cladding, well, we're a architectural roofing and cladding company. If you were to pit us, say in some roofing competition, up against a company that specialise in doing your fascia gutter, 6 hip, 2 valley home. There's probably only 1 valley on 6 hips, but 2 valley home. Then speed wise, we would be destroyed by them because that's what they do. Quality wise, I would say that we would be on par. If I don't want to go saying that we would be better, I'd say we would be on par. I certainly wouldn't say we're better. So then if you were to turn around and go cladding wise, speed on from both parts. I think the speed sides of things is something that has to be completely thrown out of the window, because it can only really go as fast as what it can go to make sure it sets up and does. Now, work ethic, people working in and getting in and working, that's a different story. However, there's rushing at the cladding isn't a way of doing it. You can't rush at the cladding.
No.
On some big commercial jobs, get into it, go nuts. No one can see it. They're 150 meters away from where they can get their eyes on it.
There's a difference between cladding a house and cladding a factory.
Stadium. Yeah, 100%. So there's a massive difference. So if you look at the point of cladders aren't roofers, well, they are. They're just not going to be as fast. Is my point. Generally speaking.
Sort of the thing the way that I look at it is roofers aren't cladders, but cladders can be roofers.
Yeah, well, that's a better point. We as cladders yeah, go.
I was going to say, like, you know, the old saying, like, every Marine's a rifleman, right? It's like, well, kind of, but not really. The infantrymen are riflemen. Like, not every person's going to be as good as the infantry guy at slinging a gun. If you're a example.
Yeah. So as the point being is that with the cladding, if you're good at cladding, and I'll it's what we do, right? So whether we're good or not, I'll put that up to everyone else's decisions and reputation. I put it down to the way that we have to finish as cladders, and I'm saying this as an industry, as the cladders, the way we have to finish our flashing work needs to be at the top of our game. So the ability to take that onto the roof, this is why it will be slower at doing the roofing. However, you could almost guarantee that our workmanship will be as good as any roofer.
Yeah.
And so the coming the other direction that's where it's hard. And yeah, so that's that. So
if you spend all your time in the finer details, that's what you're going to do all the time.
Right. So my background, so we started MyCladders in 2012. We're licensed in 2013. I was a contractor that from 2005 through to 2012 or 2015, predominantly worked on transportable switch rooms, custom built transportable switch rooms that had all sorts of things going through the walls, up through the roofs, all these crazy sorts of things that people like Rio Tinto would walk around and critique for as close as they could be. Everything needed to be perfect. It needed to be beautiful. And that's where we as a company honed our craft on, okay, what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable, and learnt trades, learnt skills and what we can achieve and what we can't achieve. And we've taken that into our business. And that's where we came from. Now, I said not many people had that opportunity to work in that type of environment to be able to hone their skills. Because there's not many companies and the company there was, if you want to do your research to see what that is, James Engineering, who build very, very high-end switch rooms, or they did when we were there, for whoever needed them, train, Queensland Rail, etc. So the difference between roofing and cladding is it's a roof, and this is what we were talking about this the other day when we were discussing about this podcast. Roofing is a system.
Yes.
It is 100% a system. You have a fascia, you have a gutter, you have trusses, you have battens, you have insulation, you run sheets, you run ridge caps, you run valleys. There's a normal hip and valley system, and then you have a flat pitch roof that has its own system. Yet, from what I found out, the TAFE in the code, and anyone else that teaches, in the certification of roof plumber. So roof plumbing Cert 3 does not teach under 11 degrees, or might even be 13 degrees. So they don't teach that. So you have to go and get your experience in that after. So up above 11 or 13 degrees, you're operating off a hip and valley system, or just a straight skillion system. So it's all a very, very basic system that you can copy and paste. Whereas cladding is, there's a corner, there's a window. There's so many different types of windows. The cladding doesn't all fit into each profile of window. You can't order a specific window to suit a specific type of cladding. the way that FC cladding or weatherboards, those butt in, and sometimes builders will put a timber trim and they'll rely on Sikaflex, so or sealer and things like that. So there isn't a system for cladding that is or can be rolled out like a roofing system. That's kind of.
I always say you have the flow chart, right? You follow the system up until the system till you follow it until it doesn't work, and then you go, okay, where do I go from here? There's all different branches and stuff that will come off from where you get to a certain point. It's like, well, how do I finish this? How do I do that? Well, you've got to then stop, think, and don't just think that whatever you do on the roof is going to work in this situation. Things are completely different. Water doesn't flow on the roof. It flows differently on the roof to the way that it flows on the
wall.
On the wall, likely to pull if you over tighten a flashing by just that little bit, and you end up with you remove that pitch that's going to keep it, that 91 degrees becomes 90 or 80, 89, your window's going to flood.
Yeah, exactly.
All this water is pull, which is what's happened out here. They've just over tightened a few of their flashings and stuff over a couple of windows, and they're all pulling because they've tried to use the same system that's used on like a factory wall on a house, and it's not the same.
So that's exactly right. And here's a clear indicator of a system failing. There is no teaching facility that I am aware of in Australia that teaches cladding.
No, which is why you got approached by Queensland TAFE to teach the trainers how to do it.
But because it's becoming part of the certificate, right?
Yeah.
But no one knows how to teach it because there's no system. So this leads us on. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
So I was just going to say, further to what we were talking about before, like you put on a shed, for example, if you've got to put sarking on a shed or on a factory wall, you're going to put it on top of it's going to be stuck to the purlins, and then you screw into the purlins. So the thinking behind what they've done is that they've gone, well, we need to have something to fix our sheets on a shed. We just fix it onto we put the sarking over what we fix it to. So they've treated the battens like girts instead of stopping and thinking, going, no, that's got to go against the wall, and then that goes on.
So you have to look at it. So if you look at this from that perspective, if you look at the roofers, and we discussed this earlier as well, the roofers, it's not that they were lazy. It's not that they were. It was the fact that they used the systems that they knew and tried to apply them into doing this particular job.
Yeah, I think they've just gone and tried to use what they know how to do, and not fully understanding that it doesn't work in the exact same way.
And I really hope that they
onto a clad shed, you would have to install sarking onto the girts and then install battens before you put the sheeting on.
I hope for the industry that these guys that did this job don't get disheartened, because they look like they've tried. They really, if they could get some guidance, whoever it is, I'd be happy to work with them to assist them on this is where you could go right. This is where you could have changed this. If they're open to it, I hope that they don't just go, oh no, bugger that, I'm not doing that again. I'm just going to do the roofs. Which leads us on to the other part of this topic, which is when we won't name any names, I was approached by someone to connect together with another roofing company, a large roofing company, if not the largest. So one of the largest roofing companies in Southeast Queensland, because that roofing company hasn't been able to fulfill all of the builders' quotes. So the builders come to them asking for, can you quote us on not just the roof, gutter and fascia package, they want some wall cladding, some Colorbond cladding. And they've tried using their contractors over the years and failed. They've gotten a lot of kickback. So this representative has asked for me to have a meeting with these guys to see what we can do to help, because they're bombarded by builders, and the builders are being disheartened and putting people off using Colorbond on the walls because they can't get anyone to do it well. And at first, in the request, I was asked to. I kind of just said no. Look, I don't want to work with them. That's not the type of work that we do. And we would be bombarded if we were to be doing. And I'll say this nicely: project homes, which are essentially and again, I'm saying this with all due respect, a Metricon home, a Plantation home, a Simmons Homes, these big builders who use these big roofers to build, and they want their customers come say, I want this Colorbond cladding. I love it. It looks great. I've seen it on the block. This is what we want. And they go to their roofers. The roofers can't help them. And so they can't add it to their package. So I initially said no, because what would that do to us, Josh? If you were having to quote 10 jobs a week on really low value, high volume, low value jobs, what would happen to us?
We wouldn't be able to service all the other clients that we service. We wouldn't be able to do anything else.
Yeah.
Like we would torpedo us into a subby.
Yeah. So after communicating, after a couple of days thought, I went back and thought, well, these big roofers don't just service the big builders. They also service guys that do 5 to 10 homes a year, that are doing bespoke homes, which have a little bit more patience and tolerance, and aren't just trying to get a square meterage rate to how cheap is it. And so we're going to arrange a meeting with them to discuss how we can assist those customers, because the industry has problems where Colorbond wants to get as much, obviously, as a business, wants to get as much steel into every home as possible. And the cladding is going, when you look at a house, you see the roof, but you don't. You look at the front door, don't you? You walk in and you look at the front door, you look at the facade. The roof, if it looks amazing, it looks amazing. But if there's Colorbond on there, you're instantly Colorbond. Colorbond, the branding, so they want that. And the whole industry has a problem with that because roofers aren't cladders.
Yeah, that's it. We need to speed this up.
Yeah, I tangent that a little bit. We've got 9 minutes and 49 seconds left.
Yeah. So look, I think it's also like, I don't think that the bigger build, like the big high volume project home builders are not going to understand that it does take a lot of time to actually do the job as well. They're going to be very like, no, this has got to, it's like, do you want it done properly or do you want it done below standard? Do you want to be having to defect it and having to get like hiring more and more scaffold for longer and longer to fix all the defects, or would you rather me get this done right the first time?
Well, that's exactly when they were coming out, they were saying how the Colorbond would go on faster because it's a pre-finished product. You only need one trade on there, and you'll be able to get your scaffold down faster. That was when Colorbond was really pushing that. And I don't know if it was Colorbond saying that, but that was the sort of message going out to the builders in the industry. So they saw that as an advantage. So over the price of the job, it would end up being very similar. It's not true. We need longer, like the carpenters can come in and slap FC board all over the walls and put some timber battens over the top. Then the painter can come and spray the outside of the house, and that can happen over a few days. But when it comes to cladding on the walls, well, there's a shortfall of qualified cladders in the industry. So they've got to wait now for a lead time for the cladders that are out there to come off one job to go onto another and to come onto their job. So that you can't just have them like that now. Get there now. And so either the builders are going to have to do it themselves, and we've seen what happens when that happens. And I've seen good and bad results. But the reality is that scaffold, I said to a builder the other day, I said, what you'd normally allow for a scaffold, put another 2 weeks on it, and then you'll be in the ballpark. So if you're looking at an extra $1,000 a week on scaffold hire, there you go.
That's it.
So
yeah, hopefully that.
What was that?
I hope that's cleared up a few things for the listeners to try and to understand. Like, it's not the same. Like, there's a lot more fine tuning involved with what goes into Colorbond wall cladding.
Yeah, well, there's heaps more. Like, we could talk about that all day, and we talk about it a lot because of the expectations of one and the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. Because everyone actually wants to achieve that beautiful look that they see in the magazine, right? They see on YouTube, they see on Instagram, they want to achieve that look. And we find that it's a very small percentage of people that end up having that done for them.
That's it.
So, maybe we could get into some training.
Maybe.
Could be an idea.
Who knows? Well, I think the industry's moving in the right direction. They're going to have people learning this stuff at TAFE now and actually going through it, so people will understand more about what's going on. So that shortage is not going to be around forever.
Well, I hope not.
But it's getting to that point. That's the thing.
Yeah, because there's a lot of skilled guys.
It also comes down to then roofing companies, because their apprentices are coming through TAFE doing those things, actually having a crack and doing the jobs and understanding that you're going to have to just wear the mistakes to make sure that you can do it better in the future and learning from those mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. I think that one of the things that would be a great driving point, because roofing is kind of a trade that you don't get too many older guys in it, because they get older and then their knees can't do it. Because it's quite a physical job. So you've got a lot of young guys doing roofing. By the time they're 40, they're cooked. And so being able to transition into cladding from roofing and go, right, well, I can still earn good money. And if I'm a good roofer and I want to get off roofing, I can get into cladding. You might take a bit of a pay cut for a little bit. However, if you bring your A game to that, it will progress. So I think the industry is open to make sure, and like this podcast in itself, and anyone listening to that, it'll now hopefully be a bit clearer for them to understand that they're why is it the price that it is to do the cladding? Why is it $300 a square meter to put the Colorbond on the wall? It doesn't make sense. I don't get why it's $300 a square meter, because we've got guys that have specialized and dedicated their life to cladding, opposed to a roofer that's done it once or twice, that's good at roofing and exceptional at roofing. But just
that's it.
You can't go from rugby league and go into rugby union and expect to be at the top of if you're the best in rugby league and you go to union, you've gone into another fish tank. It's still water. It's surrounded by glass, but it's a different fish tank.
Yeah, that's it.
I just created that one. I like it. Anyway, what are you up to for the rest of the day, dude?
Picking up the kids, mowing the lawn, all that fun stuff.
Lawn. I like your shirt.
Yeah, it's very nice.
We didn't mention that. We both.
The new trademark. What was it? Golden Hour.
Yeah. So it's actually quite. You should stand up and show them. No, you're right. I'm just kidding. It's quite nice to have the new range, and when they bring nice ones out, they've got another one now, a leopard one, but I don't like leopard print, so I'm not going to go there. But hopefully we can be recognized for our change of fancy, cool, fun shirts.
Maybe one of these days. All right, folks. We'll catch you next time.
See you guys.
Hey everyone. So I hope we've educated you all a little bit on the differences between Colorbond roofers and Colorbond cladders, and that the install isn't exactly the same way, that the systems don't work the same way. And I really hope that we've helped all the roofers out there to understand that taking your time on cladding is paramount in ensuring the top-notch finish for the end client. Remembering that walls are going to showcase any imperfections a hell of a lot more than they're going to show on the roof. As always, guys and girls, if you have any questions, please chuck them down in the comments below. And until next time, folks, let's keep constructing art.